I am Jessica Morales, commander of a Navy flight team. My father still believed that I was merely tightening bolts in a hangar this morning. At my parents' place, we were seated at the kitchen table with the aroma of bacon and coffee permeating the space and sunlight filtering through the blinds. I probably spent my time pushing tool carts or changing out spark plugs, he was telling an old friend from his Marine days, and they both chuckled as if it were the greatest joke they had heard all week. He wasn't corrected by me. I simply smeared butter on my toast and allowed their laughing to linger like static. The patches on my duffel bag at the door and the calluses on my hands that weren't caused by a wrench went unnoticed by him. Why I was home was not questioned by him. I didn't question whether my visit was for more than just catching up over breakfast. He had no idea that I would be strapping into the lead jet of one of the world's most renowned flight teams in a matter of hours. That afternoon, I was flying at the top of the Diamond while the Blue Angels performed at the City Air Show. It was exactly 2 RPM. Smoke would pour behind me as I roared over his head at 600. It would be impossible for him to miss, and it would no longer be a joke when my name was announced over the loudspeakers by the announcer's voice. Medals, pictures of Marines in dress blues, and flags folded in precise triangles adorned the walls of the home where I grew up. My father wore his shoulders back, his jaw firm, and his eyes searching for weakness, as if every day were inspection day. He had a way of dividing people into 2 groups, yet he wasn't mean like some fathers. Made for the sidelines or tough enough for the battle. He believed that I fell into a certain category as soon as I was able to walk. When the neighborhood lads started playing tackle football in the yard, I was the child who had been sent inside for piano lessons. I was instructed to assist Mom in the kitchen while my brother got to clean weapons with Dad in the garage. Telling Mom later that I wouldn't like the cold, he would leave me sleeping in my sleeping bag and take Luke fishing at dawn when we went camping. He would say my delicate hands were more suited for a keyboard than a rifle, and smile like it was cute if I tried to compete in push-up competitions. By middle school, I had given up requesting inclusion. Dad and Luke would toss a ball outdoors while I played Chopin in the living room, their laughter resonating through the open windows. Even if I pretended otherwise, there was a part of me that desired his acceptance. The day I informed Dad that I had been accepted into the STEM summer program at the Naval Academy heightened that urge. With pamphlets in my hands and a blush from excitement, I returned home. It felt like I had a golden ticket when I received my acceptance letter from the academy itself. He hardly glanced at them before stating, "The only thing you should be flying under the radar at is a music school." It was one of those thick envelopes you cherish forever. When I hurried inside to show my parents, my father only squinted at me and inquired as to my sincerity, while my mother grinned. "If I resign in the middle," he suggested, "I shouldn't expect him at graduation." Regarding the graduation portion, he fulfilled his promise. He wasn't there when they pinned those gold wings to my chest 4 years later. All I received in response to sending him a picture was silence. That turned into the norm. He would act as if it were no great deal when I reached a significant milestone, leading my squadron through a successful training mission, my first foreign deployment, and my first carrier landing. At worst, he would comment that I was fortunate that women were now allowed to fly, and at best, I would receive a brief text message that said, "Stay safe." He kept the framed picture of my squadron in a drawer, even after I brought it home with a note that said, I was the best damn pilot he'd ever flown with. The thing that hurt the most was not anger. It was the lack of concern. I stopped trying to persuade him over the years. I discovered how to silently celebrate with those who truly cared, and to keep my triumphs to myself. However, a part of me continued to question whether there was anything I could do to change his opinion of me. As someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with any aviator, sailor, or Marine, rather than as the young lady who rehearsed the piano while the real action took place elsewhere. In the backdrop of my existence, that question hummed softly. And I believe I've always known in my heart that the answer will be found in the sky. Before it rebuilt you, flight school broke you to your core. Early mornings, never-ending checklists, and teachers who appeared to notice every error before you did were all part of the first few weeks. I gained the ability to fly in all weather, to remain composed while my headset screamed alarms, and to trust my instruments when the horizon vanished. It was hardly a glitzy affair. My muscles ached from hours of struggling with the controls, and perspiration was collecting behind my helmet. I was instructed to shrug it off and try again by my teacher after I woke up from my first blackout during hygiene exercises. I did, and I managed to stay conscious long enough to finish the roll the next time. Every accomplishment seemed like breaking through a mental barrier my father had erected. The one with the label, "You can't." My nerves were put to the test during night carrier landings. Before you felt the arresting wire grip your jet, the deck was a postage stamp in a sea of black, shifting in strange ways. Drills for emergencies were another beast. We rehearsed landing with one engine out, simulating fires and losing hydraulics in midair. I discovered how to control the panic that arises when the cockpit is filled with smoke, and there is no more visibility. Being one of the few women in the program didn't bother the teachers. They were just interested in my ability to fly the mission. I knew it was a turning point when I was chosen to lead a training exercise in inclement weather. The visibility barely made it above the minimum, and the winds were terrible. My commanding officer gave me a rare gesture of recognition when the debrief came to a finish, and I managed to bring every plane home without any damage. I considered calling my dad that evening to tell him. I was even holding my phone. I put the phone down after hearing his old statements in my mind about how I belonged in a band rather than a plane. In actuality, I no longer required his belief in me. The sky believed, the other pilots believed, and the aircraft didn't give a damn about my father's viewpoint, my gender, or my upbringing when I strapped into a cockpit. All that mattered to it was that I could fly, and I could. I became stronger than I had ever been as a result of every exhausting day, restless night, and silent moment. I demonstrated my worth. As usual, I glanced over the list of cities when the new Blue Angels schedule was released, partly expecting nothing out of the ordinary. Then I noticed it. My father's backyard, my hometown of Seattle. I just stared at the page for a while. The moment you see a winning lottery ticket and start to think it's genuine. The ideal stage was right here. For truth, not retaliation. That weekend, I was supposed to fly lead in the diamond formation, which is the position that everyone sees initially. In a perfect sync, 4 jets cut the sky so close that you could reach out and touch the tips of the wings. In the crowd, I saw my father with his arms folded, looking out over the horizon with the mixture of pride and doubt he saved for actual pilots. He was unaware that his daughter was the pilot he would be seeing. Under the festival committee's name, I placed an order for 2 VIP passes. Just tickets to the greatest seats in the house with entrance to the reception afterwards, with no note or return address. I imagined my father's hesitation to acknowledge his desire to travel and my mother's interest. I was confident he wouldn't fight back because I knew him well. He had always believed that the Blue Angels were the real thing. When the announcer called my name the week before the concert, I found myself thinking about his face. Would he appear surprised? Would he assume it was a coincidence and laugh? Or would he suddenly understand that he had been underestimating me for years? I felt a rush of adrenaline just thinking about it. Nevertheless, I concealed my exhilaration beneath layers of composure. I kept what was about to happen a secret from everyone outside my squad. I had a basic plan in mind. Let the sky, the precision, and the engines speak for themselves. Additionally, he would notice me rather than just a jet when I flew past that VIP tent at 600 Mellersman. The air on the tarmac was pungent with the scent of chilly dew and jet fuel on the morning of the performance. The Blue Angels shone in the floodlights as the hangar doors were flung wide open. Each panel was polished to a wet-looking finish. Crew members performed a choreographed dance while loading gasoline, testing communications, and inspecting hydraulics. My chest vibrated with the deep hum of supplementary power units. Knowing what was going to happen made every sound more acute, and every movement more significant. I locked my helmet bag next to me and zipped up my flight suit, feeling the material stretch over my shoulders. It was a familiar grounding weight. Sunlight caught on the leading edge of the wings as I approached my plane, causing them to flash in the air like a blade. As the announcer ran through sponsor names to warm up the audience, her voice was hardly audible over the speakers. I looked across the field at the VIP tent. With one hand in his pocket and sunglasses on, my father stood looking around the stands as if he were on guard duty. He didn't know. The crew chief nodded and handed me my helmet. I put it on, the padding enclosing me in a world where the communications were the only voices that mattered. As I went over the mental checklist I had completed 1,000 times, my breathing slowed. Canopy locked, oxygen on, gear safe. As engines spooled up, the tails of the other aircraft, which were arranged in the starting formation outside, flicked. Through the canopy's glare, I could still make out the VIP tent from the cockpit. Slowly, my mother was talking to someone in the seat behind her while fanning herself. While waiting for the show to begin, my father continued to gaze out over the runway. More for myself than for anyone else, I grinned beneath my visor. The sky will do the talking for me today. We were cleared to take off by the tower. I placed my left hand on the stick and my right on the throttle. My lungs appeared to be drained of breath as the engine's rumble intensified into a roar. I didn't have a racing heart. It was consistent, set to the same beat I used on all of my flights, the beat that preceded my departure from the ground. As I pushed ahead, I saw a tiny dip in the nose, and the runway started to blur below me. We waited for the signal after taxiing into place and forming a perfect symmetry. Through the cockpit glass, I could see the glimmer of the exhaust meeting the chilly morning breeze and feel the heat from the engines. My father was going to see something that he had been ignoring for years, somewhere below, in that packed tent. I didn't have to wait to see his response. In the ensuing silence, I would hear it. And the roar of our flight would be louder than anything he had ever said about me when I rolled down the center line with 3 jets locked on my wing. As we climbed over the bay, the diamond formation locked into position. With no more than 30 wings between them, 4 aircraft are slicing the sky. Every tilt caused the canopies to shine like mirrors as the sunlight caught them. In crisp, clean lines, white smoke streamed from our tails, piercing the deep blue sky over Seattle. You could feel the thunder of the motors in your chest as well as hear it as it rolled over the throng. The city appeared picture-perfect from this vantage point, with the lake shimmering in the afternoon light. The coastline fell beneath us as we lined up with the runway we entered from the west. Every call-out was crisp and well-practiced, and the radio was quiet. Then, loud and proud, the announcer's voice roared over the speakers. I didn't have to look at the audience to know the response, ladies and gentlemen, to Commander Jessica Morales of the United States Navy, who is commanding today's Blue Angels Diamond Formation. I visualized the surprise ripple, the gasps, and the whispers going through the stands. I could see the VIP tent through the glare of the canopy. My brother stood up and looked up at the sky. My mom had her palm pushed to her chest. Additionally, my dad dropped his phone. Forgotten, it lay in the grass beside his sneakers. He was squinting into the light and looked up, trying to make sense of the relationship between the daughter he had undervalued for years and the pilot in the lead jet. I could only see that expression on his face for a moment, as the sound and movement of the flight subsided. The smoke trails glowed in the sunlight as we crossed over them at 600 mph while maintaining a tight line. The vertical break followed. The sky in my visor shifted from blue to silver as I drew back on the stick, feeling the G-forces dig deep into my ribs. With a deep breath and strong hands on the controls, I leveled out as the jets ripped away in perfect synchrony. From the ground, it appeared effortless, but each motion was the result of years of practice condensed into a few seconds. I saw the tent in the corner of my eye once more on the return pass. My dad was still where he was. He continued to gaze at me, looking really good. At me, not at the jet or the outfit. His speech was drowned out by the engines. I didn't have to, though. For the first time in my life, he saw me as the lady flying 3 other aircraft through the sky without a doubt, rather than as the girl with the delicate hands and piano keys. That was sufficient. A sense of calmness settled in my chest as we banked into the following run after climbing out of the move. This was no longer about disproving him. The goal was to tell him the truth. And more loudly than any words I could ever utter, the truth was flying straight over his head. Voices and the clinking of glasses filled the reception tent. After the roar of the event, there was a faint hum of energy. Still wearing my flying suit, with my helmet tucked under one arm and my perspiration drying on the collar, I entered. As I walked in, reporters, admirals, and veterans turned to applaud me, but my gaze immediately moved to the rear of the room, where my brother and parents were standing. My mother's smile was shaky and her eyes were large and moist. My brother gave me a thumbs up and smiled. My father watched me as if I were a stranger, and he simply stood there with his hands in his pockets. His eyes did not stray or get stony. As I moved toward them, it remained focused on mine. I didn't have to ask for the crowd to disperse. There were no ostentatious gestures when I came to a halt in front of him. Only silence. He took out a faded photo from inside his jacket. I believed he had hidden and forgotten the squadron photo I had given him years before. Now his hand was steady as he held it out. His voice was low as he asked, "Can you sign it?" With the edges mushy from years of handling, I took the picture and inscribed my name and title underneath. The Blue Angels are led by U.S. Navy Commander Jessica Morales. He examined the ink as though it were a unique item. There was no spectacular apology or embrace, but there was a change in his eyes. In a way I had never seen before, it was softer and more open. He replaced the picture in his jacket. He said, "I'm going to hang this in the study." "The location of your brother's boot camp photo." I grinned and advised him to alert my brother first. He laughed, a faint yet genuine sound. That was sufficient. We continued to stand there for a bit, allowing the sound of the tent to fill the pauses between sentences. I had envisioned this moment as a speech or a confrontation for years, but it wasn't. It was something more subdued and enduring. I had never really wanted anything more than for him to see me at last. I never took to the skies to disprove my father. I never endured storms and restless nights in the cockpit, simply to listen to him express pride. The only place I felt really myself was in the sky. Therefore, I took to the skies. The weight of other people's opinions and the cacophony of doubt vanish up there. My hands trigger the controllers. For a few flawless moments, everything makes sense as the air rushes by. It wasn't about gaining his favor when I heard my name reverberate over the loudspeakers that day. It was about paying tribute to the years of effort, the self-control, and my passion for flying. Until the evidence becomes too strong, too obvious, or too loud to ignore, some people will never see you for who you truly are. And that's all right. Continue if there is someone in your life who still doesn't see your value. Continue constructing, producing, or pursuing whatever ignites your soul. For them to catch up, you don't have to slow down. One day, your work will be so loud that people will be unable to ignore it. Let your narrative be told by the sky. Let your voice be heard above the phrases they use to silence you. And you won't require an explanation or an apology when that time arrives. Doing what you were born to do will put you miles ahead of the competition.